In this video, we're going to revise conventional cell referencing in Excel and introduce an exciting alternative called named ranges. Now that our data is all transformed and cleaned, we're ready to start performing calculations. And the first thing Zara would like to do is work out the late charge for each of the overdue invoices. Late charge is calculated by taking 0.36% of the invoice amount and multiplying it by the days overdue. So let's see how we do this. I'm going to click into N5 and type equals. We'll grab our amount, multiply that by our overdue by, and then times that by our penalty rate. When we press enter, there's our late charge. But when I come to copy it down, we have a problem. Now the reason for this is when we create an Excel calculation and copy it down, the cells it's referring to move down as well. This is called relative referencing, and it's the reason we can normally copy our formulas. But in the case of the N2, we didn't want that to travel. We wanted that to stay N2. So how do we do this? Well, one option would be to just times the penalty rate in there. This is not a good option though. We really want to always retain a single point of entry. So in other words, if we needed to change our rate, we would only change it in one place rather than in loads of calculations. The other thing is we want our sheets to be self-documenting. So it's good that we can actually see the rate there without having to go into our calculations and see what rate is being used. So really it's good practice to refer to the rate. What we need to do is just tell Excel that that needs to stay fixed, or what Excel calls absolute. And we do this by putting $1 in front of the column and $1 in front of the row for the cell that we want to stay locked. Now typing the dollars will be very tedious, so instead we're going to press F4 on our keyboards. On some computers, you may need to press function F4. You'll see that's put our dollars for us, and what that's saying is whether we drag the formula down or across, N2 will stay fixed. If I press F4 again, you'll see I've only locked the row, so this will fix it if I drag down, but not if I drag across. And of course I can press F4 again and just lock the column. If I press F4 one more time, I'm back to my relative. So 4 options: relative, absolute, and 2 mixed cell references. The one we want in this case is the absolute, so I'm going to press enter, click back on my formula, double click to copy down, problem solved. And this is a good solution that you will see used and you will probably need to use yourself. The only problem is that when our calculations get much more complex and we're pulling data from different sheets, they become very messy and very hard to understand. So we're going to look at a much more elegant solution called a named range. Let's delete those formulas because we're going to redo it in a moment. So I'm just going to press delete and I'm going to come back up to N2. Wouldn't it be nice if rather than calling that cell $N$2, I could call it something sensible like penalty rate? Well, that's exactly what I can do. And I do it by clicking on the cell I want to name and coming up to my name box, which is the small box to the left of your formula bar. You'll see at the moment that cell is called N2, but I'm going to click in there and I'm going to change the name to penalty underscore rate. And when I'm finished typing, I'm going to press enter. Don't forget that step. If I click away for a moment, to find out what named ranges exist in a workbook, you can come back to the name box and click the drop-down list. They'll all be listed there. I can see my penalty rate, and if I click on it, it actually navigates me to it. So the name box can be used to create name ranges and to locate them. Let's now see that used in our calculation. So back in N5, I'm going to type equals, click on my amount, times by my overdue by, times by, click on my rate, but this time you'll see it uses the named range. And because that name refers to a specific cell, I'm automatically getting an absolute cell reference. So I press enter, I copy my formula down. It works perfectly. It's easier to understand, and I didn't have to worry about the dollars. You probably realized that there were some rules about how we name our ranges, and I'll just quickly run through those. The name can be up to 255 characters long. It must start with a letter or an underscore, so you couldn't have 2019 sales. You'd have to have sales 2019. It can consist of any combination of letters, numbers, and underscores, but no spaces, no hyphens, and most punctuation characters won't be accepted. So just stay with the letters, numbers, and underscores. They have to be unique, usually within the workbook, although we will look at an exception to that later on this week. And slightly more subtly, they can't be a cell reference. Now, of course, you wouldn't want to call your named range N6, but here's a mistake that's quite easy to make. I've selected these values and I'm going to name this range top 10. Looks all right when I press enter. Can you see the problem? Top 10 is in fact a cell reference. Any 1 to 3 letters followed by a number is going to be a cell reference. So solve the problem by putting an underscore. All right, I'm going to press Control Home just to hop back. So just to recap then, to name a cell, we click on the cell we want to name, come to our name box, type in the name, and press enter. In the next video, we're going to look at some other options for creating named ranges.